You are listening to selfdiscoveryradio.com with an orchard of wisdom just ready for your picking, filled with illuminating, inspiring stories. Do check out the community and the discovery stores. We are here for you. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Choose Positive Living. I'm your host, Sara Troy, and my guest today is Karen, is that Straughan? Straughan. And we're going to be talking about men's rights. What does the Me Too movement mean for guys? Do we leave them behind? Surely if men have rights too, because they can also be victims, and if they actually know boundaries, because I think really what we're talking about when we're looking at men and women is where is the line drawn? Where are the boundaries? How do you read the signs? When have you gone too far? It's confusing for men and for women at the present moment because we're in a completely new dialogue and a totally new approach to our sexuality, to our approach and communication with one another. So Karen is a spokesperson for the Men's Rights, Edmonton contributor, adviceformen.com. She's a prominent men's rights advocate and brings public attention through her YouTube channel, GirlWritesWhat. Is mother of several children. I'm just imagining Mother Hubbard there in her shoe with dozens of children there. And she's also a publisher of erotic novels. So let us dive right into it, Karen. You've got a lot of things under your belt here. But why in particular is men's rights so very important to you?
Well, I mean, I kind of I fell into it by accident, and I was a member of an erotica and romance writing community, review sites, message boards, critique circles, all of those things. And one day, somebody posted on a review blog, "Let's go make fun of these guys over here," and there was a link. They dropped a link to this men's issues website. It was very, very hardcore. It was an extremely masculine space, kind of like a locker room. Mm-hmm. And the article that they wanted to make fun of was actually pretty trivial. It was a trivial complaint. But I noticed all of these self-described feminists, who they decry body shaming and virgin shaming and slut shaming and all of these things, and they say men shouldn't be forced into man boxes, and boys don't cry is not healthy, and men should be allowed to talk about their feelings and all of these things, right? Mm-hmm. And if they don't, that's toxic masculinity. And they all descended into the comment section under this article, which was complaining about romantic subplots in hard science fiction and how you really, as a man, if you like hard science fiction, you can't find it anymore. They always have to include something for the women. And so it was a very trivial article. But all these feminists descended into this comment section. And they were using all kinds of sexual shaming and virgin shaming and body
shaming and just shaming for the sake of it, right?
Yeah, and I bet you have, you're just bitter because you're a virgin who can't find a woman who wants to touch your tiny little micro penis and things like that, right? And so they were essentially violating all of these things that they say that they're against. They were just like dishing it out in the comment section, and that didn't really surprise me. What actually surprised me was the fact that these men weren't having any of it. There was no yes deering, I'll shut up and stop complaining going on in those comments. It was like, here's what you're doing. You're using sexist shaming language. Mm-hmm. You are being sexist. And we're not going to listen to you. And then they just carried on their discussion amongst themselves. And I got involved in the discussion. And I found the atmosphere of the place. It was a place where women were welcome right up to the point where they demanded special treatment or gentler treatment because they were women, or some kind of had made some claim to moral authority or moral superiority because they were women. So if you were willing to just dive into the rough and tumble of this dialogue that men were having with each other, telling each other and talking about things that they don't say, they don't talk about with women, particularly with the women in their lives. I was just pulled into this atmosphere of just absolutely shameless masculinity. And I loved every minute of it. And while I was there at that website, I learned a whole bunch of information about domestic violence law and policy, about domestic violence statistics and prevalence, about sexual assault and what's going on there, about all kinds of things, family court, the male suicide rates, all of these things that men deal with, institutional discrimination against men, all kinds of stuff like that. And I was thinking to myself, once you see that, you can't unsee it.
Right, yeah.
And so I just found myself wanting to talk about it more and more and more and more and more. And over the course of a couple of years of talking about it online, I came out, because I got accused of being a fat, ugly, neckbeard loser who can't get laid, because no woman would ever say or think the things that you do, when I was just writing. And so I came out on video, and then it just snowballed from there. And it wasn't even a calling. It was a vocation that found me. Yeah. And demanded that I do something. So that's really how I fell into it.
We never know, actually, how those little redirects are going to happen. They're never the normal path, right? It's something kind of lit, something underneath you. And when you actually took the journey, the things that you discovered along the way. Because when we think about it, we are in an area where women have the voice. We've stepped into that voice. But nobody wants to hear from the men. And, we need to hear from the men because, if we think men are the problem, maybe because there isn't a dialogue between us. Maybe we need to hear them and all the issues that they go through as well. It's not just the women. Now, not demeaning the most certainly the way women have been treated is wrong. But basically, aren't we looking at, whether it's man or woman, aren't we looking at a humanitarian issue? Aren't we looking at the way we treat each other as human beings and forget about the sex? Aren't there some kind of respect that we're meant to have for one another, an ability to listen, and boundaries that we're meant to have that we don't cross? Shouldn't that be across the board, no matter what sex you are?
I think so, and one of the things that actually really helped me being part of that website, and like I said, it was a very hardcore website, was, I was going through a divorce at the time, and my marriage had just completely broken down. The last 5 years of it were totally miserable for both of us. And I, when you're in a situation where you've asked for a divorce, I'm pretty sure that every single one of us, when we ask for a divorce, we can identify in incredible, minuscule detail every single thing that our partner did wrong.
Oh yeah.
All through the course of the entire thing, right?
Yes.
But what I wanted to discover there, and what they helped me discover, were the ways in which I contributed to the breakdown of the marriage, the ways that I undermined my husband's masculinity, the ways that I made him feel less confident in himself, the ways that I made him feel sometimes irrelevant in his own family, in his own household. And that was sort of my mother standing behind me, not, or the specter of my mother, the ghost of my mother, or the astral projection of my mother saying, you had something major screw up in your life. And that I've always taught you that the only person you can control is yourself. So you need to actually take a good look at how you contributed to this, because you being the only person you can control, you don't want to make those same mistakes again. Mm-hmm. Right? And so that was a huge part of why I really loved my time there. But when you actually, part of it really is taking responsibility for the things that you do. Yeah. And the ways that you undermine other people, the ways that you maybe sideline them or make them feel uncomfortable, or make them feel judged, or make them feel just undermined and put in a box, where they don't feel like they have a way out. And so essentially, what we really need is an intrasexual dialogue where both men and women have voices. And right now, I just don't see men they have voices and they will speak. It's just a matter of the culture's willingness to listen to them, which we have not gotten to that point yet.
No, there's a lot of speaking at one another, but not to one another, isn't there? When we've got to understand that it doesn't matter what vessel we're in, male or female, or transgender or whatever. We've all got that same desire. We wish to love and be loved. We wish to be valued. We wish to know we count for something. We want to step into something purposeful in our lives. We want to feel secure. Bottom line, we've all got these things inside of us that we want. That's a common denominator. Yet we all seem to look at each other as being contrary to that, a confliction with that. And I think very often when people attack, of course, it's coming from their own reflection of their own inner selves. And also sometimes a lack of empathy of actually understanding somebody else's situation. People go on the attack out of ignorance, out of hate, or out of self-loathing. And I think this is a time period right now at this crossroads in life where we cannot play ignorant anymore. There is far too much out there that is there to educate us and show us a different way of doing things. And we all have to take some responsibility and step up to the plate, don't we?
Yeah, and I think too, because women have been the dominant voice on all these gendered issues for the longest time, and there is this idea permeating sort of the dominant voice on gender, which is feminism. The idea ever since the 1960s that if you just equalized everything external, right, men and women would essentially be identical, right? That the evolution stopped at the neck up. And and so what they seem to have been doing is sort of projecting themselves onto men rather than trying to genuinely understand where men are coming from. And I think that's partly due to the ideology, the idea that, gender and the different gender roles are completely socially constructed and they're completely arbitrary and they have no biological basis. But as a masculine woman, I can tell you right now, like as a high testosterone woman, I do not relate to most of the feminist complaints out there. I have no way to relate to that. I am very much kind of the complaint that women feel fear walking alone at night. Women feel at risk. Women feel at risk of this, that, and the other. All of these things, right? Those were never fears that I have ever had, and part of that is because I have a masculinized personality because of my high testosterone levels, and so I think that what feminists want to say is that women are more at risk because they feel more at risk, right? When in reality, it's men who are more at risk for, being victimized by violence in almost any situation. And they don't fear that, not because they're not at risk, but because their personalities differ from women's personalities on average. And so they don't interpret threat awareness. They don't process threat awareness as apprehension. They process it as vigilance and emergency preparedness, right? So we have all of these differences between us that are sort of broad in aggregate differences. There's overlap for sure, but there are these huge differences between men and women and how they process the world around them, how they emotionally react to it, all of those things. And I think that what feminists have been trying to do is remake men in women's image for the last 60 years. And
yes.
And it's not going to work. It's really not going to work. And men are finally getting fed up with it. And they're finally essentially saying, like, can't you just walk a mile in my shoes for a change and experience what I experience and stop wanting me to change everything, all the way from like how I talk to people, how I speak about people, how I interact with the world around me, all the way to how I think about things and feel about things and all of those things. Stop trying to change me, just maybe try to understand me.
I mean, the beautiful thing about men and women is the fact that we do have differences, and but then when we come together, we have a merge there of a commonality, of a connection.
Mhm.
Going the last 60 years of the feminist movement, it was burn your bra. Well, how else do we keep these things up and from flapping in the wind? It's something practical, for Christ's sake. And
Yeah.
what happened is that the women became very emasculated to try and keep up in the men's world instead of bringing their femininity to the equation and saying, I am woman stepping into this role, and we'll bring about a balance there of a woman's opinion in it. And I think that kind of went wrong, because then women, just were out of sorts. They lost being who they were. And then that confused, I think, the men even more so. And I think with men, it's just a question of understanding. Perhaps women are more sensitive. We are more in tune to certain feelings and emotions. So take that into consideration. I think an awful lot of this is common sense and consideration towards each other. I don't want to become a guy. I don't want a guy to become me, the feminine, but I would like across the board a respect of how and who we each are, and find a dialogue between each other that is respectful of one another, coming from our own truths.
True, true. And, incidentally, sensitivity is the largest univariate um, personality difference between men and women. When you measure personalities, when you sort of look at them on a case-by-case, trait-by-trait basis, there's only about a 24% overlap between men and women's personalities. When you remove the biggest difference, sensitivity, 10% overlap. When you remove the biggest difference, sensitivity, there's a 24% overlap only between men's and women's personalities. That's the single biggest difference, is how much more sensitive women are than men are. But this is the conundrum that men are finding themselves in, because women are wielding their sensitivity, their higher sensitivity, as weapons. They are essentially, when women go to compete directly with men in the workplace, right, within the hierarchy of the workplace. Mm-hmm. And then they whip out this, I'm sensitive, you made me cry card.
Right.
There's no way for men to be able to actually compete on a level playing field with that. There's nothing they can do. What do they do? Because they look like an asshole.
Yeah.
No matter what they do. If they outcompete her, right? If they ignore her great higher sensitivity, treat her exactly the way they would treat anybody else, they look like an asshole, because they ignored how sensitive she was and how much his statements or his behavior or his actions harmed her or hurt her feelings. But if he doesn't, if he allows her to use that sensitivity, then he's lost to a woman. And he was outcompeted by a woman, and he's just scared and intimidated by strong women and all of this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, what really struck me with the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2016 was how much she tried to play the sexism card as a way of getting out of being criticized. And I'm thinking to myself, do we really want a leader who has a card that they can pull at any moment to get out of being criticized?
Right.
This is not a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're looking at a leader, you really actually do want somebody who has a very good balance between, feminine and male, within themselves. Yes. Because, they're going to be talking to both sides of the equation, and they want to be able to hold their own. And so there, it comes down to confidence. When you're speaking to someone's character, to their skills, what they bring to the table, they may bring it, with a touch of their own feminine approach or their own male approach, because that's their approach to it. But bottom line, it is what's in the content. And that very often gets lost, doesn't it? Because of these other games that are played.
Yes.
And, are we looking at the game playing as just being the norm, or is this something that, stepped in and then became part of the intricate society of the way of doing things?
Well, I think we, Jordan Peterson said something, Professor Jordan Peterson said something particularly shocking on Vice News during an interview where he said, he was asked, can men and women work together in the workplace? And he said, I don't know. We don't know. How long has this experiment been running? We don't know. Right? And if if you can't even say that, we don't know, because we don't know what the rules are. And you brought up, how we're taking a completely different approach to sexuality. We're taking a completely different approach to courtship and all of those things. Well, if there are no rules, I mean, and one of the things that seems to be what the feminist movement and the Me Too thing seems to be about is making it so that the women have no rules. Women they can dress as provocatively as they want. They can be as flirty as they want. They can behave in whatever ways they want. They can sexualize themselves in the workplace all they want. They can do all of these things all they want, right? And we are not even allowed to judge them, let alone stop them from doing that.
Right.
And then all of the rules that are completely unwritten because nobody's going to write them, and the main rule seems to be never displease a woman in any way, shape, or form, and all of those rules get dumped onto men, right? So it's no wonder you have men who are not having meetings with female underlings or colleagues behind closed doors. The door always has to be open. No wonder, everybody was making fun of Mike Pence because he won't have dinner with a female colleague unless his wife is present for appearance's sake. And they were laughing at that. But now that this Me Too thing has started up, all of these men are essentially saying Mike Pence knows how to do it, right? And then now you have women's advocates stepping up and saying, well, this harms women's ability to advance in the workplace because their male bosses won't have meetings with them without a chaperone. And it's like, well, what did you expect?
Yes. Well, this is the thing, isn't it? Is that, it's the kind of a lot of the times kind of in a sense of crying wolf. I'm all for women's sexuality. If you want to dress sexual, if that's who you are, but you've also got to understand where is the line crossed. Are you dressing to empower your own sensuality, to be a very sensual woman, or have you gone very provocative that now it's an invitation and there's a mixed message going out there?
Well, you have to realize, too, that even if you're not necessarily doing it to make an invitation or to send off a broadcast of availability or anything like that, if you actually present yourself in a sexualized way or in a sensual way, men are going to notice.
Yes.
They're going to notice, and they're allowed to notice. And so,
that's the reason you're doing it a lot of the time, whether you admit it or not.
I know, and it's just like, and so there was this one line in an article. It was called on the virtues of watching girls or something like that, right? Or like looking at women or something like that. And he said he had a professional, very attractive professional female friend in her 50s who had gone. She said, men never ogle me anymore. It's so horrible. They never do it anymore. When I went with my girlfriends in our 20s to Italy, we were outraged that men pinched our bums. Mm-hmm. And then when we went back a few years ago, we were outraged that no men were pinching our bums. Right?
Yes.
And it's just, what is it that women want? And, and do they have to take any responsibility whatsoever for the way they affect the people around them based on how they present?
And I agree that they do. I think every single one of us, no matter what we're doing, whether it's sexuality, whether it's, no matter what we're doing, we've got to understand the way we present ourselves is the way people are going to receive us and going to react to us. So if you're laying it out there that I'm this hot sexual thing, then you're going to turn someone on. And if they're going to approach you, it's not all of a sudden I'm offended. Again, of course, there are those boundaries. If this is just a dance play, but no, it is a no to any further than that no needs to be respected on both sides of the coin. But we've got to understand that, a lot of women think that in order to get ahead, they've got to go what they think is, masculine and very hard and very, demanding. And no, it isn't. It isn't at all. It's bottom line is be true to who you really are. But first make that self-discovery on who you really are, how you want to be represented from your core in, from your inside out, your own inner confidence. What do you stand for?
This is one of the things I think that women have lost through the sort of the last century or so is the prospect of aging gracefully. Mm-hmm. The billion-dollar wrinkle cream industry really has something to say about making women feel absolutely terrified at the prospect of aging. Like that you have mothers with their 20-year-old daughters wearing the same outfits and going clubbing together.
Yeah.
This is not, like there used to be a respect for the matron, right? For the matriarch of the family. There used to be a respect for the woman who settled into old age with grace and dignity, did not fight it, and gained an authority and a respect for her wisdom and her experience and all of those things, right? And one of the difficult things I think women are in the position of is that in order to gain that, they lose their sexuality, they lose their sexual allure, right? Like you can have a man in his 60s or 70s who is still going to be sexually attractive to women if he has, the huge amount of status or
Yes.
respect or whatever. And women lose that sexual allure that they had. And I think that honestly, what has happened is this idea of gaining respect and authority and status through the aspect of the matron, not the crone,
Right.
but the matron and the matriarch. I think that we've just completely lost that, and women are stuck in this place where they feel like the moment that they start getting hot flashes, their life is over,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
Well, I
that's
mean, I'm
not
on
the
the other
case.
scale of that. I'm 63. I'm, gray-haired here now, and things are going south. It's, as I was saying when I'm doing a video, making sure the double D's aren't flashing in the camera. It's just I'm aging, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And you look at some of the aging people. There's Helen Mirren, there's obviously Sophie Loren, there's Jane Fonda. There's many of them. I've done articles and shows myself on people plus 60 and how sensual and sexual they still are, and it's not the plastic surgery. It
Yeah.
is their sensual confidence in who they are. And what you see is not the exterior of the perky boobs and everybody in perfect shape, is women who are completely and utterly with love and confidence in self, and no matter what the wrinkles are or what the gray hair is. And I think
Right.
that is what's the new sexy, is that in that age. And I've always done a show on in being an elder, and it's actually an honor to be an elder. It's an honor to have some wisdom that you can pass on that will help someone else. But you're right, society and the industry along the line made everybody feel if you are not tight cheek, tight-lipped, and everything tight and perky, everybody's going to reject you. No man is going to want to go for you. They're going to go for the younger person. And so society somewhere along the line has stick that through advertising. But who are the people behind the advertising that are doing
Well,
this?
Well, I can't tell you who they are, but essentially advertising is advertising because it works. And
Yeah.
one of the, like all you have to do is, and you hear about lads mags being banned from store shelves in the UK, and, all of this criticism about porn and things like that, for men, visual porn. But when you actually take a good look at publications that are marketed towards women, and so many of them are that, like the ones that always get me are the ones with the celebrity disastrous beach bodies, right? Where they, they
Yeah.
take the camera shot of the woman bending down and she's got cellulite, all dimply thighs and everything, and this, big belly, and, she's really let herself go. And it's like, guess who this is?
Yeah.
And this is all designed to undermine women's confidence as they get older, right? Like, because everybody's bum gets dimply. I'm sorry, it
Yes,
happens, right?
yes, yes. This is just an organic vessel that we're in. It carries us. There's so much more to us. There's so much more importance within us. And yes, look after your vessel, that you keep it healthy. And yeah, just present yourself in a way that you feel proud to present yourself. But your confidence is not in, the wrinkle cream or the plastic surgery or the wig or the false eyelashes or, the boobs. It is in who you are and what you resonate out there. And that's what becomes the invitation for people to want to know you. So I think we are beginning, because we are seeing so many older actresses rather than just actors, because with an actor, he could be wrinkly and grey and he's sexy as hell. But as you
Hmm.
said, for the woman, it's well, you're over the hill now. But we have far too many actresses at 60 plus now that, have stepped into this role and say, don't count us out. Don't count us
Hmm.
out. We're not finished yet. We're still sexy.
Well, I don't even, I'm I'm of the position that, like, yes, it's great to feel sexy. It absolutely is. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But it's not the end all and
No.
be all. And, like having gone through my intensive period of 4 months of hot flashes and all of that, and hopefully that's all calmed down now. Um, I understand where women can be in a place where they do think that, okay, this stage of my life is done,
Yeah.
right? This stage where and frankly, I felt like at age 30 that the stage of my life where I could dye my hair some radical color was well and truly over, or could unironically wear a mini skirt to a nightclub was, completely over. But essentially, what I think that we need to get away from is this idea that men and women have to have the same path in life, that they
Right.
have to, that because there are some men who at age 65 or 70 are still sexy, that there are women that we have to find sexy at age 60 or 75. That's just not reality for most women.
Right.
And and no matter how much power and money and authority Madeleine Albright has, she's not going to have a bunch of 20-year-old soccer players beating a path to her door. She's
Right.
just not,
Yeah.
right? But Henry Kissinger managed to sleep with Marilyn Monroe,
Right.
right? And he looks like a sow's bunghole
I
even when he
know.
was young,
I
right?
know. I
So
know.
it's
Yeah.
a completely different
Well,
it's a
yeah,
completely
I mean,
different marketplace.
you've hit on a big word there, though, power. There's
Yeah,
something about people being in power that is considered sexy, and people,
men being in power in
men being in
particular.
power, women being in power. It's a different total thing, isn't it? It's intimidating for most people, even for women. But men
Yes.
being in power, it's suddenly what can they do for me, and me just being in their presence is something that's beneficial, and that is, something I think that goes back way, way back in time.
Oh, it
Um,
does. It does. Like you look at just the different what are men and women looking for in a potential sexual partner?
mhm.
Well, men are looking for someone who's young enough to give them lots of children and get started, doing that. They're looking for someone who's healthy, someone with symmetrical features, which shows good genes, right? And someone with a pleasant disposition, nurturing, compassionate, kind, attentive, caring disposition, because this person that he chooses is going to be the carer for his children,
Yeah.
right? And this is an evolutionary thing, right? This is
Yes.
like all this got set in stone way back when, 200,000 to 2 million years ago,
Yeah.
right? These are the things he's going to be looking for. Now, women, on the other hand, yeah, they do like muscly men. They do like beefcake. They do like men with healthy features and symmetrical features and all of those things and all those signs of health and youth sometimes. But they want a man who's established, a man who has some status in society, a man who can bring in the bacon, a man who has maybe power. Um, and all of those things, because those are the things that fill in the gaps on her spreadsheet
Yes.
of reproductive necessity, right? So it's like, okay, so how, if you want to complain that men are sexy at age 70 and women aren't, convince women to stop finding men at age at age 70 sexy,
Right.
right? Because you're not going to be able to convince 20-year-old men that Madeleine Albright, because she has high status and lots of power, is a sexy woman. You're just not going to, but you will find butt ugly men with power in their 70s attracting women,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And of course, a lot of that power, we think, oh, they've got money, they're going to spend it on me. And, you look at somebody drive a Porsche or a bit fancy car and you go, ooh. And it's like, I always say if the guy is too good looking and too well put together and the fancy car and this and that, well, obviously the love affair with themselves is probably too strong to allow
There
you to
you
get
go.
into your relationship. So, there are, and the same with women. If you've got women that have just spent so much time on their hair, their makeup, the everything about staying young, where their
Yeah.
relationship with their selves are so engrossed, where do they have time for anyone else?
Well, and not only that, I think that their relationship with themselves isn't necessarily healthy. Um, like if your first concern is the 3 hours that you spend doing your hair and makeup, and putting together an outfit, how healthy is your relationship with yourself? Like I have known women who would not leave the house without their hair done properly,
Hmm.
and I have known women who would get up an hour before their
Yes.
husbands just to do their hair and makeup so their husbands would never see them without it.
Mary Kay, huge big industry in the cosmetic thing. Her husband never saw her without makeup. And
It's
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 scary.
it's bizarre to me.
Yes.
It's bizarre to
Yeah.
me because I'm like I stopped wearing makeup about, I don't know, 5 years ago. I used to wear a little tiny bit of makeup, eyeliner, mascara, lip balm, untinted lip balm in my videos when I first started, and then I have one of these faces that if I even wear a little bit, it looks like I'm wearing a lot.
Right.
And so I would watch myself in those videos, and I would think, well, I'm not taking myself as seriously as I might because I look like I'm trying to win people over with my looks
Hmm.
rather than with what I say. And so I just decided, okay, well, number one, it's a pain in the butt to put on makeup, and number two, I'll take. I would assume people might take me more seriously without it, so I just made the choice to do that.
Okay.
And
Alicia Keys
but
has done the same thing. She stopped wearing makeup with just a nice, healthy skin, glowing face. That's it.
Yeah, no, and I really cringe when I see these young women who put so much foundation on their face, and I think that's so bad for your
Hmm.
skin, and it will age it so much earlier than you want if you wear that every day. It just seals all the oxygen out of away from your skin. It prevents oil from escaping. It's absolutely terrible for your skin, and they're putting it on every single day just to go out to the grocery store and things like that, and it's just a shame that
And
that
who are
like
they
that.
doing it for?
Oh, just because they have bought into this
Yeah.
idea that, if you're not okay, you don't look okay without it. And, not, and I can guarantee you, if every woman on the planet stopped wearing makeup tomorrow, um, men would still find women attractive, right?
Well,
Like,
they did before makeup came along.
that's right.
I mean, if women had to use their different means of their own sensuality of attracting attention. It wasn't through, the teased hair and you know, the C cup and all the makeup and everything else. There was, and also let us not forget that a hell of a lot of men are very much turned on by a woman's intellect who can actually have a conversation.
Oh, yes. That's what a lot of men are looking for in a
Yeah.
partner. Yeah.
I mean, certainly what I'm looking for, in a male. Yes, it's nice if we can find if there's a connection, a physical connection between you, but that is not on the top of my list when it comes to meeting someone. Can I have a really, good heart-to-heart, soulful conversation about life? And that is where the true excitement and the true connection is. And I think that's a lot of problems, and especially today when we're looking at texting and phoning and emojiing and everything else, that even the art of conversation between women to women, men to men are changing, never mind men to women.
True, true. I don't know. I think we might have to, I have to go in a few minutes here, but I think we might have to pick this up at another, on another show
Yes.
because this has been a wonderful conversation.
Yes, we will have to do this on another show. Maybe we'll do a roundtable also, because I think this is a very big subject, and actually, I wouldn't even mind getting a man involved in the conversation as well.
That would
Um,
be excellent.
I
Yeah.
have somebody very much in mind who actually is just speaking about the masculinity of men, and the fact how it's getting lost. So I think we will set that up most certainly, my dear. Would you let
Awesome.
everybody know how they can get hold of you, your YouTube channel, and how they can get hold of you personally?
Oh, anyone can email me at girlwriteswhat@gmail.com. My email is also on the About page of my channel, which is Girl Writes What on YouTube. And or you can just Google my name, Karen Straughan, Straughan, and you should be able to find me. I'll be the first million hits or so, because I guess the name's not very typical. So
Right, exactly.
and
Definitely.
I'm notorious apparently and infamous.
Ah, oh, isn't that a lovely title to have?
It is.
It
It
means
is.
that you're shaking things up, which is
That's
good.
right.
And this is a conversation that we really need to shake up. Yes, I'm for women's rights, but I'm for men's rights. I'm actually for human beings' rights. It's about time we started treating each other better. And the only way we're going to do that is to understand each other's needs and how to address them.
Hmm.
So, well, thank you so much, love. I'm sorry this is shortened here, but we will definitely have you back. I'm going to book you with someone else on masculinity, most certainly, and we will take this conversation further. So, thank you so much for being with me here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, folks. Bye for now.